In Western face, religion is twisted, bastardized. Jim Jones, David Koresh. You have people in all religions doing this kind of crazy interpretation of what they think their scripture says. Is this different?
It is different, John, because you have to you can't be ahistoric about this. We have, I believe, a wonderful faith that had an enlightenment path that it was going on for hundreds of years, and then it stagnated in the 15th century and arrested itself. And you had the rest of the world in the West begin to separate church and state, begin to realize that faith was most well practiced when you got the canonic law out of government. You were able to argue law based on reason. The Islamic world has not gone through that. The Muslim consciousness has not gone through that. So we are not just talking about marginal elements. The vast majority of Muslims don't subscribe to theocratic Islam, I believe. However, the problem is it's not simply as simple as extremism. We still have to do studies to figure out what % of Muslims actually believe in the Islamic State over the secular state. And that battle of ideas has yet to be waged, and I truly believe that is the source of radical Islam. And it's sort of like smoking and cancer. Cigarettes, not everybody that smokes get cancer. The cigarettes of radical Islam is political Islam.
We're back with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, part of a provocative documentary called The Third Jihad. Back in a minute on Newsmaker Sunday. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday. He is the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He's also a physician here in private practice in the Valley. Dr. Jasser is part of a provocative documentary called The Third Jihad. For people, and we'll show a clip in a moment, for people just tuning in, the Third Jihad means what?
It has to do with the concept of a jihad in Islam, which is a defense of the religion or spread of the religion. And the first one was the initial inception of Islam. The second one had to do with Ottoman Empire spreading into near Southeast Europe. And the third, now we believe, is a softer, non-militant one that looks to sort of infiltrate the West through the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood and its documents.
And you believe that there's been a calculation on the part of Muslim leaders, extremists, I guess you would call them, who realize there will be no military victory here. There's got to be another way.
That's one of the things I think that's so important, is that we can be lulled into complacency by saying, well, the number of terrorist incidents have gone down, forgetting that there have been over 30 incidents prevented. We just saw the plot in New York. We saw the one in London and the Sears Tower plot that was prevented, the bombings in Bali, Madrid. I mean, they still have a kinetic part. But the more important part is what ideology is feeding that. There are many Islamists that have a goal of sort of reestablishing the Islamic Empire state by state, getting rid of the secular fascists in Egypt and Syria, the monarchies, and they want to do that with the respect of the Muslim community, and terrorism is not going to do that. So the Muslim Brotherhood now has 20 seats in Egypt, 20% of the seats in Egypt, and every time an act of terror they were endorsing, they would lose seats. So they're finding other ways to put into place theocracy, and that's really what the moderate elements try to do, and they're really not moderate.
But in America, it's kind of the free marketplace of ideas. So if the idea is nutty or not workable and people can't see the value in it, it dies on the vine.
That's the most important thing of our organization and this documentary, is that we do not want to squelch or suppress the other ideas of theocracy and whatever it is. We want to debate them. We want to have an engagement of that battle of ideas between East and West, between the so-called Muslim world, which I don't even like calling the Muslim world because I'm a Muslim in the West and I think I'm living a Muslim life. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is that we have to engage that debate, and they can attack the messenger as much as they want, but the message is what needs to be addressed, and I want to do it through free discourse. And once you start suppressing discourse, like the reaction of Islamists to the cartoons about Muhammad in Denmark, etc., that is a society I would want to live in. And if America changes to squelch discourse of these types of things, we're actually going to lose that war.
Let's talk a little bit, and we'll get ready to roll here, tape number 8. This is intriguing because, again, there's been a lull since 9/11, and memories are short in this country. That maybe the sense that efforts against us have lost their steam. attacks on U.S. soil. Let's just take a peek at some things that have been thwarted since 9/11. Take a look, tape 8.
But yes, 7 people have been arrested in the Miami area. Officials say the plotters were in the early stages of planning an attack on the Sears Tower in Chicago.
They hoped for their attacks to be, quote, just as good or greater than 9/11.
Police arrested 6 men and charged them with planning to attack the Fort Dix Army base.
This is a new kind of terrorism. It is not only coming from outside the United States in, but it is also growing inside our own country.
Time magazine says Al-Qaeda was planning a cyanide attack, which could have killed thousands.
From what I last heard, the U.S. government has stopped over 31 attacks against the U.S. since 9/11.
These homegrown terrorists may prove to be as dangerous as groups like Al-Qaeda, if not more so.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, our guest this week on Newsmaker Sunday. Any theory as to why? I mean, we have stopped attacks, but nothing has really happened since 9/11 that's been successful. Any theories as to why?
I think it's a credit and testimony to the work of our Homeland Security and the Bureau, and how complete and thorough they've been despite all the pressure they get from the different aspects of the political lobbies. They've been very good. I mean, they've become the world resource in Britain, Europe, and elsewhere on how to prevent these attacks. And it's only going to take one to get through before it's a complete game changer.
And you believe that will happen? Do you believe President Obama will be tested?
I think, you know, I hope he's not. I sincerely pray that he's not. But I think as long as we continue to be lulled into complacency, where instead of calling it terrorism, we're calling it overseas contingency operations. We're talking to foreign governments about mutual interest and respect. Who are we talking about respecting? The monarchies of Saudi Arabia that are thugs, or the Syrian government, or the Egyptian government, which are a dictatorship? And he's talking on El Arabiya about going back to the way it used to be 20 to 30 years ago, when actually it was when our hostages got taken. We were causing fueling the problem between Iran and Iraq, with over 1 million Muslims dying. So I'm not sure that we have any focus about what we're doing, and I think that's going to lead to a test.
Let's roll tape number 1. As you know, President Obama will be traveling to Europe and the Middle East next month. He will travel to Egypt, where in addition to meeting with President Hosni Mubarak, he will deliver a much-anticipated speech about American relations with the Muslim world. What should the president say in that speech? What do you expect him to say? And what, in terms of his credibility, being a Muslim, he was raised a Muslim, and is now a professed Christian, but he has got some credibility that we've never had in that part of the world. Does he have an opportunity here to change a dynamic at play?
Well, I certainly think, you know, from a PR perspective, he has been doing a good job at just sort of reaching out, and as Fuad Ajami calls him, the unbush, he's been sort of capitalizing on that. But, you know, the honeymoon is over, and he's going to speak in what is the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood at Cairo University, I think, next week, later this week. And is he going to appease the fascist governments in power, or is he going to actually tell the Muslim population, the dissidents, the women of the so-called Muslim world, that we're here to protect them, we're here to stand for their freedoms and liberties? He has yet to really use the word democracy when he's talking to the Muslim world. And even the term Muslim world, I'm not sure if it's the right one to use, because it sort of feeds into the narrative of bin Laden, which is to separate West secular Christian world from the Muslim world. He's walking a tightrope. So I think it's time. I would like to see him go there and talk about the fact that we are not going to appease theocratic Islam or the Brotherhood. We are not going to appease the Mubaraks of the world. We're going to represent the individual citizens and help them create institutions of change, educational systems, free markets, and reform their governments toward the representatives of the ideas of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and ask the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Conference, to abandon the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights, which they all signed instead of the UN Declaration, because of its its ability to profess the rules and regulations of political Islam.